Spotlight with Shonda Scott. We are here courtside at the Golden State Warriors at Oracle Arena for a influencers panel, a discussion for Women's History Month with the women who are in business that are doing work with the Golden State Warriors.
Thank you so much for attending the Women's History Symposium. Please give yourself a round of applause for being here, guys. My name is Gareth Burke. I'm the Golden State Warriors sideline reporter. I've worked in a male-dominated industry for a long time. I've seen some stuff. I imagine these women have seen some stuff too. And one idea that I keep coming back to is you can't read what you can't see. Representation matters so much. I remember the women, the trailblazing women that I saw on the TV screen. Robin Roberts, Lisa Salters, Erin Andrews even. And these were the women who made me think, okay, I can do this. Women can do any job that they want to do. The only thing they need is an opportunity. And we have a great panel here today of women who have made their own opportunity, blazed their own trails. I'm very excited to introduce you to them. We're going to start with Kristen Lemkoff. She is the Chief Marketing Officer at JP Morgan Chase. She spent 19 years at JP Morgan Chase in communications and marketing roles. And in 2017, she was recognized as a Matrix Award winner by New York Women in Communications and named winner of Entrepreneur's 50 Most Daring. It's Kristen. Woo. We've got those.
And speaking of daring.
Would you like to make this introduction?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I thought you meant me. No.
Oh, no. Okay. No. We've all got to know each other. It's been lovely. We've got Bo St. John. She's the Chief Brand Officer at Uber. Yes, she has built a reputation as a trailblazing marketer in advertising exec. Before Uber, she was at Apple Music and iTunes. Before that, she was at Pepsi. Let's give it up for Bose. We also have Ijanu Nwosu. She is the Chief of Staff at Kaiser Permanente. And I don't know what, I've got a paragraph.
She's awesome.
She is awesome. That is the bullet point there. EJ was named one of the top 40 under 40 executives by the San Francisco Business Times, also recognized by Modern Healthcare as an up-and-comer, and one of the top 10 minority executives in healthcare to watch.
My career has spanned lots of different industries. I would say that currently, in Silicon Valley is probably the most challenging when it comes to the situation of the balance of men and women in leadership. And for me, it's all about, really bringing your full voice to the table. That being heard in an environment which, one, is not used to the female powerful voice, one that is unquestionable and unapologetic. Additionally, having what I feel like is a cultural divide, and having to sometimes translate what I mean so that it can be heard properly has been perhaps the biggest challenge. But I am one that is not scared of any kind of barrier, even when it's cultural or lingual. I'll just speak louder and maybe slower so you can understand what I'm saying. But I feel that this is a magical moment, for women in general and women leadership in particular, that we have a real opportunity to make a real change, that there is a catalyst moment happening right now that I'm jumping full in. This is not a moment of fear. It's not a moment of victimization. That oftentimes these motives and movements make people feel as if we should apologize or we should be scared or we should take the blame for something that was not created by us. But I really find it to be a powerful moment that I want to completely go full charge into it and make the changes that we all want to see.
Now, you've been at Uber for almost a year, over a year now. It's about a year?
Almost a year,
Yeah,
10 months.
So you said when you first came in, You were a little cautious, but then everyone cheered because we were all so happy to hear you came on board. It was amazing that Uber made that decision. That was incredible. Since that time, it's been the Me Too movement, and all these changes have happened. What have you seen change at Uber since your presence has been there with all the branding that you've been doing?
Yes.
What can you see, like the top 3 things that you've seen change?
Yes, well, there's so much. I mean, obviously there's new leadership at Uber. I have amazing colleagues whose job it is to actually change the internal culture, and obviously my responsibility is the external storytelling. So I think there's a real partnership happening of doing the right thing always, and also being transparent. It's a very difficult thing to do when you're an innovative company and you're trying things and sometimes making mistakes, but ownership of those mistakes is really important, and then learning from them is really important. So I think that in the instance of the Me Too movement or women's empowerment or diversity and inclusion or innovation in tech, we have to be inclusive, we have to be transparent. It's really important for us to own up to our mistakes and then also learn from them and show the fact that we are learning from them. And so that's what I find most encouraging.
So what do you think is going to happen from now on with you at Uber, from like this moment to next year? What are you looking for now? Because it's a whole different direction now.
Yes.
You have a whole new lane to run in.
Yes. Well, I wish I had a crystal ball so I could say, okay, this is exactly what's going to happen. That's the beauty of innovation, is that we're constantly trying things. Obviously we have a roadmap. There are lots of things that we want to do from a tech standpoint, lots of things we want to do from a cultural standpoint. But for me, I want to continue to push this agenda forward. That I want to tell the story of Uber in multiple ways, in the complexity of what the brand is. That there is a product story, there's a people story, and there's a culture story. And so if we can do a good job of exploring all of those areas, I think we'll be a much better and much more beloved brand.
Now, one last question. How are you able to be your authentic self? And how, because that's not easy for people to be. Even if you feel that way, you get in those rooms and you just get nervous. So you are always, I follow you on Instagram too. So how are you always your authentic self?
Well, I think it's a combination of things. I am very bold in how I am anyway. I feel that if I am not representing who I am, it's going to be very hard for the next person after me to do that. That if I pretend to be somebody else, that somebody else can't come in and be who they are. So I try to remember that. It is a lot of pressure because I'm constantly thinking about the greater responsibility that I have, not just for myself, but I also have a lot of support. I have a mother who definitely encourages me, who looks at me and is like, what happened today? That kind of thing. I have some great girlfriends, great circle of mentors and mentees who also encourage me. So it's about the tribe, but it's also about the internal dialogue.
You're watching Spotlight with Shonda Scott, and we will be right back.
Every child needs a mentor, a positive role model. For me, that was my grandmother. For more than 110 years, Big Brothers Big Sisters has been making meaningful monitored matches between adult volunteers and children. And these positive relationships have direct and measurable impacts. Help a child realize his or her potential. Visit bigbrothersbigsisters.org.
Of all the things you've done with your bike, donating it to Goodwill may be the most incredible of all. Your donations help fund job placement and training for people in your community, which means your stuff can be more powerful than you think. Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs.
Yo, it's your man Tony Sco from the KVLX Dream Team, and you're rolling with the Spotlight with Shonda Scott. She's incredible.
Welcome to Spotlight with Shonda Scott, where each week we bring you the best and the brightest, the movers and the shakers, and the hidden gems from all over the Bay. Let us shine a spotlight on your business. Sponsorship opportunities are available. For more information, visit us at spotlightwithshonda.tv. Judge Trina Thompson opened her courtroom to Oakland High School students interested in pursuing the legal profession. Students received a behind-the-scenes look of the legal system and career paths from the judge to attorney and court reporters. Join us as Spotlight with Shonda Scott takes you into the halls of justice at Alameda County Courthouse.
You have a question, we're going to ask you to come to the podium. There's a microphone there. There is a script. Good morning, Mr. Draves, if you'll join us in the jury box. If you have time, thank you. And so we're going to ask you to identify yourself, tell us what it is that you'd like to do, and then direct your question to the panelists. Since you're members of the Law Academy, we want you to already start getting accustomed to presenting in the courtroom.
My name is Martha Ibarra. I'm interested in becoming a lawyer. My question is for the judge. My question is, what does a typical day for you look like?
Day starts at about 4:30 in the morning because I have a family. So I have to take care of all of their needs. First thing in the morning, I'm starting dinner and getting things ready for my kids. And then I do a little bit of studying while it's real good and quiet. And then I'm in the commute, which takes about an hour and a half for me to get to work now. And I spend that time talking to my clerk, just making sure that I check in with him. I'm listening to books on tape, and I'm talking to my elders who live in the South to make sure that they're okay, because I have to figure out how to balance my time. So when I get to the courthouse, I pretty much have already prepared the night before. I've read the cases and whatever it is that I need to decide so that I can really relax and be present. I want to make sure that when the attorneys are in front of me that I'm looking at them, I'm looking at the litigants so that they know that they're not just a file, they're not just a number, I'm really present in the courtroom.
My name is Christina, and I have a question for you.
Meaning our court reporter.
How fast do you type?
The average jargon in court is between 160 and 220 words a minute. And in short spurts, I can get up to around 280 words a minute. This is the actual machine, and it's all computerized. And this keyboard was developed back in the 1930s, and it's still being used today because it is such a great system. It's a phonetic system. So there's three languages that I deal with. The English language, as it's spoken, the machine language, as I write it down, and it's basically a phonetic language. So no one can read the notes except for myself, which is great, because as the testimony is going on, I can put my grocery list down or things that I'm going to have to do tonight. But in order to increase the speed, I'm not typing every letter of every word. Otherwise, it would be maybe 50, 60 words a minute, like the old typists back in the office days. So what I do is there's phrases that I can use that I can hit in one stroke, common phrases like, in other words, on the other hand, as a matter of fact. I can hit that all in one stroke.
My name is Ariana, and I'm interested in becoming a lawyer. And my question is for anyone who wants to answer. But recently, we've been thinking of like alternatives to the justice system, and I was wondering if you could change something within the system, what you guys would change and why.
I think to go to the heart of one of the major issues that we're dealing with in the criminal justice system is mental illness. Because I feel like we don't really have the structure to address that issue, which is so common underlying aspect of the cases that we get. You have someone who, one of the issues you deal with is someone comes in and they don't seem like they're able to work with their attorney. So we can take steps to send them to a hospital if they're determined to not be able to stand trial. But that doesn't speak to how they were at the time of the event. You've heard about plea of not guilty by reason of insanity. That speaks to how they were at the event, but not how they are now. So they can be fine now, And they're not going to go to the hospital because you're talking about what might have happened at the time that the event occurred. Meanwhile, the issues get so complicated that it's hard to have a jury address those kind of detailed issues in any kind of way that really gets to the nuances of mental illness, which is very complicated. And at the heart of the day, you might be saying, okay, they did it. But what does it really mean and why did they do it? And what would be the best way to address it so it doesn't happen again? Because that's what society really wants, is for this to not happen again.
My name is Penelope Martindale, and I'm interested in becoming a public defender, so my question is directed towards the public defenders. I think we saw a statistic that said if the average the public defenders in New Orleans had about, on average, 7 minutes for their cases. So I was wondering how much time you actually have for yours and how you take the time, or how much stamina you have to invest the same amount of energy in every single case.
This, luckily, is definitely very different. You said at the end of your question that you invest the same resources for every client, and that's actually probably not true, because one of the things that you get more skilled at as the longer you're a public defender is realizing what needs to be done in a case. Obviously, every single client is very important, but not every single client's case necessarily demands the same attention. So if someone is facing life in prison on serious charges, you might approach that case differently and spend more time on it than someone who's charged with having a stolen car, which doesn't mean that stolen car case isn't important or that you're not going to work very hard on it. Of course you would. It just means that one is going to be more complicated and involve a different amount of time sometimes, and one is going to, not necessarily, but oftentimes either move more quickly in the criminal justice process or just have a different kind of demand on time. But I think we're all really careful to make sure that we are spending enough time on each case and with each of our clients. And being a public defender, I think we all probably wish we had more time. But I know that my colleagues and I work really long hours, work really, really hard to make sure that each client is getting enough of our time and resources.
The Oakland Technical High School Law Academy was invited to come to the courthouse so that we could demystify the court process for them. These are students who have made a determined effort towards entering either the legal field or some ancillary career to the legal field. And so the curriculum is set around the diversity pipeline to assist students to be best prepared to matriculate through high school, into community college, and or a four-year college, and then on to law school. And part of that is to make sure that they have access. Many students who are in private schools or who come from generations of lawyers and lawmakers already have had access to the courthouse and the profession, but a lot of students who come from the community do not necessarily have that type of access. And our Supreme Court Justice wanted to make sure that students knew that there was a pipeline available for them to matriculate into the legal profession, and also to help us to diversify the bar and the bench. It was an amazing experience to look in that audience and see the array of students who come from multicultural backgrounds, not only African American, Latino, Cambodian, Vietnamese, Hindi, Punjabi speakers, individuals who are from a multitude of communities all in one courtroom, and knowing that eventually they will be seated in the seats at counsel's table, in my seat, as a courtroom clerk, as a court reporter, or as a deputy. And I know in my courtroom, when litigants come in and they see the diversity in my individual courtroom, there is an ease that happens when they walk in, because they're already aware that it's a room that is not so adversarial that they won't be heard, because there's just some comfort in seeing people who look like you playing some role, serving some role in the criminal justice system. And I think that it enhances the integrity of the community's respect for the bench and the bar. I think it enhances the communication across the bar, as you heard the attorneys talking about what they felt needed to change and happen in the criminal justice system. Even though they were from different sides of the aisle, they almost all said the same things. And so I think the more diverse we have, the more diversity we have in the legal profession, the better, and the better the quality of the outcome. Look for a mentor. Look for someone who's doing what you want to do. If you don't feel like you have access to a mentor, which when I was growing up, I didn't feel like I knew anybody that I could just come in, talk to, and have access to, I went to the library and I read every biography I could get my hands on of anybody who was doing what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a photographer. I read everything about Gordon Parks. I wanted to be a judge. I read everything about Thurgood Marshall. I wanted to be a fabulous lawyer, starting with Perry Mason. I even read stuff about Perry Mason. But I wanted to read the stories of people who looked like me. So I found every book I could on any African American female lawyer, female judge, male attorney that looked like me and represented the social justice passion that I have, so that I could see that there was more than one path to get there. Stay linked in with us as you follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And remember, #Spotlight with Shonda.
So they say it's a man's world? I don't see anybody's name on it.
While they were doing their thing, we slowly changed all that.
Today, women can do anything men can do. And there's one thing we're even better at.
Welcome to Spotlight with Shonda Scott, where each week we bring you the best and the brightest, the movers and the shakers, and the hidden gems from all over the Bay. Let us shine a spotlight on your business. Sponsorship opportunities are available. For more information, visit us at spotlightwithshonda.tv. You are watching Spotlight with Shonda Scott. If you missed an episode or want to see exclusive behind-the-scenes footage, go to our YouTube channel and join by clicking the subscribe button.
Hey, what's up? It's Antoine Davis, and you're on Spotlight with Shonda Scott. Stay tuned in. She'll have more to come.
This edition of Spotlight is part of our alumni edition with one of the Skyline alumni, Rue Mapp, who has started a revolution with her organization. Outdoor Afro is now a national movement, an organization that has many locations throughout the country, and I think even abroad. But the exciting part about it is that now Rue is taking her experience in growing up camping and bringing it to more diverse communities, so that now more African Americans are going back outdoors and visiting our national parks. We actually found out during her event that during segregation, African Americans weren't allowed into some of our national parks in the United States. I know, can you believe that? Not even in a park. So this event highlights some of those pioneers that actually are bringing African Americans and the national park movement and health and wellness all together. And she was born and raised right here in Oakland, California. So we had a chance to go to her annual event called Glamp Out. So Spotlight was there to highlight Rue Mapp, OUSD alumni. This organization has grown tremendous in the last few years, and I want to hear more about what started it all and about your journey.
Well, my parents, we grew up in Oakland, but my parents had a place up in Clear Lake, and it was a place where we hiked and biked and camped, and the important thing that we did was not only do the recreational activities, but we had family and friends from all over the community come and visit us. And so I had the value of hospitality in nature from a very young age, and I continued to build on those experiences. I was a Girl Scout here in my school.
I was a Girl Scout too.
Yeah.
Scouts make great leaders.
They do. And I had my first job with the Mayor's Summer Youth Program, doing restoration work at Lake Merritt. And so, outdoors was just a part of my life. And it wasn't until I had a conversation with a mentor in 2009 about what is it I really wanted to do with my life. And I opened my mouth and my life fell out. Wow. I was like, well, I'd probably start a website to reconnect African Americans to the outdoors. And I did it. And it was a simple blogger template. And within a couple of weeks, I started getting immediate feedback. Social media was pretty new back then. And people were telling me how much they love the outdoors and nature. And I realized we had always had a connection to nature that hadn't been seen in the mainstream gaze. And so Outdoor Afro set out to do something about that.
And with me are 2 Lifetime Achievement Award winners for tonight. I understand you're doing national work, international work with bringing African Americans and exposing them to nature and the national parks. So can you tell us a little bit about your organization and the work that you're doing?
Oh yes, absolutely. We formed a consulting company called Earthwise Productions in 1995 to help the public land management agencies bring information about the national parks to African Americans and other people of color. Because we had taken a trip around the country, driving from coast to coast, the Atlantic to the Pacific, and traveling through 10 national parks, including Grand Canyon, Yellowstone, Yosemite, and we saw less than a handful of African Americans. So we decided to do something to change that.
Miss,
are we on?
Yes, Soul Yoga herself, Nikki Thomas. Well, hey, how you doing? I'm great. This is fabulous.
It's fabulous in here. This is, I'm just glad to be back. It's just so impressive. It's so important, and it's just a place to, see some great people. And
great energy.
Reconnect. Yeah, great energy.
So tell us about what's going on with Soul Yoga. I mean, I just love the name and I love the experience.
Okay, so first of all, so I've been hanging around Miss Rue Mapp, the founder of Outdoor Afro, and I'm getting such great insight on Soul Yoga and the direction that I'm going to take with it. I'm in the community. I am still reaching out to folks through Soul Yoga, and also ironically enough, connected to KBLX. So I'm partnering with a whole lot of folks in the community to make Soul Yoga grow bigger and bigger.
Oh, I'm so excited. We have one of OUSD alumni from Castlemont High School. Yeah. You just got recognized by President Obama, but you are the oldest park ranger.
Oldest park ranger in the country.
Can you tell your age, or do you not tell?
95.
You look fabulous.
Okay.
You look fabulous. So tell us about how you became a park ranger. Graduating from Castlemont High School, and now you become a park ranger.
But then, I've lived a lot of years and done a lot of things.
Yeah, but still.
And so I had no intention of ever becoming a park ranger, but I was a field representative for a member of the California State Assembly, Dion Arner, and that was my district in Richmond. And at a time when this park was being created, any kind of job you want to have, anything from geology and you can be a historian, you can be a deep sea diver, you can be a geologist, you can be anything. And I am involved with outreach.